If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
Just like that, home court is gone. EJ Stewart, Tommy Beer with you. This is Orange and Blue Bloods, a New York Knicks podcast and Audacy WFAN original. We got plenty to talk about on this episode. We'll be talking about Game 1 of the Knicks Heat Eastern Conference semifinal series. The Heat taking Game 1 in Madison Square Garden, 108-101. We'll break down what happened in this game. It was a pretty eventful game on both sides. Julius Randle did not play in the game. Butler played in the game and got hurt in the fourth quarter. So planning to discuss how the Knicks were unable to close the deal and take Game 1 in this one. They now trail this series 0-1. So we'll talk plenty about that. We'll also preview Game 2, which is happening on Tuesday. So now that we have these kind of bubbling storylines happening, whether, when Randle will return, if Randle will return, what's the deal with Jimmy Butler? Does he play? What adjustments will be made from Game 1 and Game 2? We'll break those down as well. And then we now have a full deck in terms of our Eastern and Western Conference semifinals. We have all the teams stacked up, the 8 final teams in the postseason. So we'll break down how the Eastern Conference bracket shakes out for the Knicks beyond this Heat series. Of course, we don't want to lose sight of the Heat after they just won Game 1, obviously. But we'll talk about that Celtics Sixers series and some of the storylines happening out of there with Joel Embiid still nursing a bad knee injury that he's trying to come back from. And we'll talk about the West because the West is now set. We saw a historic performance from Steph Curry, 50 points on Sunday. So plenty to get to on this episode of Orange and Blue Bloods. As I said, Tommy Beer joins me as always. Tommy, how you feeling?
Feeling all right. Lost opportunity Sunday. I'm sure a lot of Knicks fans are frustrated, but, we expected a long series coming in. Felt like this was a game that, without Randle playing, that Miami probably felt they really wanted to win. If they were going to steal one at the Garden, this was probably it.
Yeah.
They got the job done. Now the Knicks are facing their first must-win of the postseason. If you're a good team and you want to make some noise and you want to make a run in April and May and June, you have to win must-win games. And the Knicks are playing their first must-win contest in a long time on Tuesday night. So let's discuss.
We will discuss. And again, this is Orange and Blue Bloods, a New York Knicks podcast, Audacy WFAN original, a podcast you can get wherever you get your podcasts, including the free Audacy app. Make sure you get the auto download feature on your streaming service to get these episodes. Every time we drop 3 times a week. This is episode 1 of this week. So make sure you guys hit that auto download feature on your streaming service. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube. You can catch us both on the WFAN and Audacy Sports channels. You can catch not only the full episodes of these podcast episodes, but also segments from each episode that we do. So make sure you catch us wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you catch us on YouTube, Audacy Sports, and WFAN channels there. So let's begin with Game 1. The Heat snatched home court from the Knicks, taking Game 1 at Madison Square Garden, 108-101. Knicks took the lead heading into halftime, but a sluggish third quarter would doom the Knicks. They were outscored 31-20 in the period and were unable to take control back of this game. The Knicks were able to cut the lead to about 3 points with about 5 minutes left. And then really kind of the storyline of this series moving forward, I think the storyline maybe of this Knicks season unfolded. You had Jimmy Butler drive to the basket. He gets hurt on a drive that they called a defensive foul, looked like a clear offensive foul, but that's neither here nor there. And he hurts his ankle for stepping on Josh Hart's foot. And he hurts his ankle. He's badly hobbled. He makes the 2 free throws. Heat go up 5. And instead of going to the locker room or exiting the game, he stays in the game despite clearly being very hobbled and really being used as only a decoy for the rest of the game. Yet the Knicks were unable to target him offensively. The Knicks offense completely stalled. The Heat pulled away thanks to big buckets from Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry, and Bam Adebayo. All those guys able to help finish the Knicks off in this game. So Knicks lose. RJ Barrett led the Knicks with 26 in this one. Jalen Brunson had 25. But Brunson, after the game, was talking about the difference between the Heat and the Knicks in this one, and he said a lot of it was on him.
They finished the third quarter strong. Finished the second quarter strong. Key moments in the game where we need to finish strong, be strong, and that starts with me. Today I was horrific. Just very uncharacteristic by me, and this one's on me, and I gotta be better, and we'll go from there.
So that was Jalen Brunson's thoughts on the loss, putting a lot of it on him. And Nick did not execute well down the stretch. Poor shooting was a big key in this loss. They shot 7 for 24 from 3 in this one. Julius Randle did not play in game 1 due to the ankle injury that he suffered in the closeout game against Cleveland in the last series. Obi Toppin stepped in to the starting lineup for Julius Randle, played really well. He had 18 points and 8 rebounds, but that was not enough, obviously, for the win. Jimmy Butler led the Heat with 25. So, Tommy, I'll start with that final stretch because it seems like the stretch that everybody is talking about with the New York Knicks. Why did they fail to execute down the stretch when the game was in the balance and you had the Heat essentially playing 5-on-4?
Yeah, obviously we're going to talk about them failing to attack Jimmy Butler, a hobbled Jimmy Butler. We'll get into that and some of the turnovers as well. But I thought the final 5 minutes were microcosm of the first 43 minutes, and that was the Knicks didn't make shots and didn't make makeable shots. Sometimes, when we'll discuss, there's a lot of twists and turns and cool things to kind of dig into the details with, but sometimes it comes down to which team makes shots and which team doesn't. As you noted, the shooting just wasn't up to par in game 1. I dug through the numbers a little bit. Knicks hired Tom Thibodeau in 2020, as we know, after the 2019 season. They had played 256 games since the date they hired Thibodeau. That's 246 regular season games, another 10 playoff contests. Never once had they made fewer than 8 3-pointers and 12 or less free throws in the same game until Sunday, game 1. So that just gives you kind of an idea that this was truly an anomaly. And the crazy thing was, it wasn't as if the Heat were playing incredibly, smothering defense on the perimeter and flying all over. They were giving Knicks wide open looks. NBA tracking data, Knicks were 2 of 15 on open 3-pointers. That's when the closest defenders within 4 to 6 feet. Knicks were 4 of 16 on wide open 3-pointers. Again, these were shots that they're comfortable taking. These are shots that kind of the offense is designed to generate. And credit to Miami, they basically came into the game 1 and said, "Listen, we're going to pack down the paint. We're not going to let Brunson beat us with drives and floaters. We're not going to let Mitch Robinson, just destroy us on the interior. We're not going to let you guys fly in and get easy buckets." Can Obi knock down threes? Can Brunson knock down threes? Can RJ Barrett knock down threes? Can Josh Hart knock down threes? If you make them, you win. If not, we like our chances, and that's and it made sense coming in. Every team in the playoffs is shooting above 30%, at least above 30% from downtown. The Knicks are shooting 26%. So, following this disastrous game 1 from downtown. So there's a lot to talk about. We'll talk about it, but at the end, sometimes it's and Randall's impact is all factored in there. But given what the Knicks had to work with, defense played relatively well. They just didn't make shots, and we talked about it during Cleveland series. They missed a bunch of free throws, and we said at some point it's going to come back to bite them. Sunday it came back to bite them.
Yeah. Look, sometimes basketball is very complicated. Sometimes it's very simple, and the Knicks being unable to make wide open shots really cost them in this series. I mean, and I do think it's something to talk about because I'm starting to get a little concerned about these 3-pointers. I mean, the Knicks are shooting the worst in the NBA postseason from the 3. They're shooting 26% from 3. It's crazy that they, advanced in 5 games in a series, shooting 26%. They're only making 8 threes per game. And I got to shout out Andrew Perloff, who works at CBS Sports Radio, because I was on Maggie and Perloff last week, and we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, talking about the Knicks and their ability to beat Cleveland. He said one of the concerns he had was 3-point shooting. Now, it didn't mask itself as an issue against the Cavs. They won despite not shooting the ball well from 3. But you see in this Heat series that this is going to be something that they're going to have to fix. I know you were at the game, Tommy, but during the broadcast of the game, they had Eric Spoelstra mic'd up. And so it was weird. I love these mic'd up things, and it's unfortunate. I never feel like I ever hear Chibs saying anything of value in these things. I don't know if they're just editing those things out. But it seems like every time Spoelstra's on there, he's saying something extremely important and something that actually informs you about how they're playing the game. Again, I don't know if that's by design or he are allowing more to get out. But either way, the first quarter, Knicks were killing them in the paint. They killed them in the first half in the paint. They scored, I think, 40 points in the paint in the first half, or 42, something around there. And after the first timeout, the second timeout, when the Knicks went up by 9 in the first quarter, Spoelstra gets on his guys and say, "Hey, do you know who we're playing against? We're playing against a team that's a paint team, a team that is trying to get buckets in the paint, that team that's trying to trying to get baskets at the rim. We got to do a much better job of cutting the paint off. We cannot allow them to live in the paint for the rest of this game." And I felt like since that timeout, you saw a different Heat defense where they were not allowing RJ Barrett to just get to his left hand. They weren't allowing Brunson to live in the paint without any arms or swarming defenses. That changed. And RJ Barrett said in the postgame, he said it was very clear that they started to stop allowing us to get into the paint. And that's where we got to do a better job of hitting open shots and spraying the ball out to open shooters. So the Heat really didn't execute their game plan at all to start the game, and Spoelstra was pretty PO'd about it. And then once they did, Knicks couldn't answer. And then in the poor three-point shooting, something that they saw in the film for sure, probably during that Cavs series, and something that we now see that I don't think the Knicks can survive this series, that they're going to continue to shoot at a 25, 26% clip. That's got to improve.
Yeah, so that brings us down to, can Emmanuel quickly snap out of a shooting slump? It's something that we talked about in the Cleveland series. Another thing that didn't come back to bite him necessarily. IQ still gave you enough defensively, but he needs to knock down his shots. And the other question is, does Grimes get more looks? He only played 10 minutes in game one, only took 3 shots. He's obviously working his way back, so conditioning might have been a bit of an issue. You don't know if a guy's rusty after missing 2.5 games and sitting out essentially a week. So, and then obviously, going forward, and we'll preview, game 2 in the next segment, but this could come down to Jimmy Butler's right ankle and Julius Randle's left ankle. It's at this stage of the game, that's kind of what we're looking at. But yeah, you're right. As far as adjustments, I thought it was interesting that Jimmy Butler started out on Brunson. That allowed, that kind of enabled RJ Barrett to bust loose, and he was brilliant in the first quarter. 11 points, 5 of 6 shooting, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Seemed like he made the right decision every time the ball was in his hands, whether it was to get to the basket, make layup, drive into the paint, penetrate, and then kick out to a wide open shooter. He just played really, really well. Had some costly turnovers down the stretch, but there wasn't definitely not a lot of bright spots to take away. And RJ also left some points at the free throw line, but that's the 4th straight really good game from RJ Barrett. 4 high pressure playoff games. He continues to play at a very high level, so that's certainly encouraging from a New York perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And I know there were some that were still upset about how RJ played down the stretch. He didn't play well in the fourth quarter, but no one did. I don't know. I didn't think that was a reason to really bang on him. He was kind of carrying the Knicks offense in the first half, and he was brilliant for most of the game. So, yeah, the Knicks got to find a way to make shots. And I'll tell you what, I thought when it came to Thibodeau's coaching, and we'll get to the last 5-minute disaster, I think, by him in a minute, but I thought that he made some errors when they weren't able to make shots. So you mentioned Quentin Grimes. I know he was 1 for 3, but that's 33%. That's better than the 20% they shot in the game. Quentin Grimes probably needed to be out there because the Heat were not respecting Josh Hart as a 3-point shooter. Right. Hart didn't seem willing to take the 3. And I think that them not respecting him also kind of like messed with his shot because he ended up shooting an air ball in the last 4 or 5 minutes of that game. So not to say you got to take Josh Hart off the court, but if Quickly's not going to give you anything in terms of shooting the 3 ball, then you got to get Quentin Grimes out there, give you somebody. And then I thought Tibbs made a critical error not playing Obi Toppin more down the stretch. Tibbs in the postgame said we were trying to match it with what they were doing, which I understand, but it annoys me. That answer annoys me for 2 reasons. Number one, they had Cody Martin playing power forward. There's no reason why Obi Toppin can't guard Cody Martin. You were talking about they were playing. There really aren't too many guys. Like the Heat don't have a lot of like ball dominant like guys who can break you off the dribble kind of guys. Like I can't even name another guy they could have out there because like if it's Duncan Robinson, like it doesn't matter. Like Obi Toppin can guard a guy who's gonna stand in the corner and wait to shoot the ball or drive on closeouts. Like there's no reason why he couldn't be on the floor based on how they were matching up. So that made 0 sense. I hated that answer for that reason. But then the second reason saying, well, we had to do what they were doing. It's like, I mean, Obi Toppin had 18 points. Obi Toppin was probably the Knicks' second best player in that game. And he was the only guy making threes, the thing that you were struggling to do. Like, how about making the Heat adjust to you? The Heat were having problems with Obi Toppin during that entire game. He was stretching them out. The fact that he was the guy that was actually making the Heat pay for not closing out on shooters. I mean, that answer was ridiculous to me. That we didn't play a guy who was lighting it up because, well, you know, they went small. When they don't have a bunch of guys who are ball handlers, guys who can break you off the dribble. So I really hated that answer from Tibbs, and I thought not playing Obi Toppin down the stretch was a huge misstep by him.
Listen, there's only one player on the Knicks that made more than 1 3-pointer. That was Obi Toppin, who made 4. Granted, he took 11, so it wasn't, you know, he wasn't shooting, you know, it wasn't like he didn't miss.
That's still, I'll take that. That's like 38, 37%. That's good.
100%. He was stroking it confidently. It looked like he was, stepping into a shot, and looked like he just had a good flow. And then, yeah, I agree with you. I thought that was questionable. And again, the Knicks, they held the Heat under. The Heat averaged 124, 126 or something against the Bucks. They only scored 109 against the Knicks. Like, you expect to win when you hold a team below 110 points. But again, the offense was struggling. So yeah, I agree with you. Cause mismatches. Cross match. You don't have to just bend and because Spo put somebody in that you have to kind of change your lineup based on that.
Yeah, that was not a good job, I think, by Tibbs on that point. And when we talk about that last stretch, and I do think it's important to kind of break down what happened. So Butler gets hurt at 5:05. The game is 95-92. He makes 2 free throws. It's 97-92. Next time down, Brunson, gets a floater. He scores. They don't tackle Butler on the play, but he scores 97-94. These are the Knicks possessions after that bucket from Jalen Brunson. You have Lowry blocks Brunson on a layup. They get a jump ball. RJ Barrett gets blocked on a fast break layup by Caleb Martin, going 1-on-4. RJ Barrett gets a foul on a moving screen. A bad pass. RJ Barrett loses the ball on a bad pass turnover. I mean, these are the possessions the Knicks were having. And then quickly attacks somebody that's not Jimmy Butler and misses a 2. Like, that's a 3-minute, 4-minute stretch of Knicks offense. None of those plays had anything to do with Jimmy Butler. The only time they tried to go at Jimmy Butler, they actually ended up trying to. Jimmy Butler, I think, was guarding RJ, and they didn't understand the concept that if they screened, that they would switch, obviously, because Jimmy Butler couldn't move. So they just switched like Cody Martin or Kyle Lowry, someone on him, and then they realized, I guess this is not what we want. I think that was the turnover possession that they had when RJ threw a bad pass. Like, I mean, come on. Like, and like, I'm a bang on Tibbs because he's got to do a better job. And his answer in the posting again was kind of like nonsense, like he kind of didn't give us anything as to why they didn't attack Jimmy Butler. And I'm also got to put that on Brunson. Like, you're the point guard, you're the floor general, you're the leader. Everybody has 100% faith in you to make sure that the Knicks will execute the best they can down the stretch. And he says he failed in that game. I think that he's not wrong. I mean, I don't think the way the Knicks executed down the stretch in a game that was right there for the taking. I know they were down, 5-6 points, but the Heat just weren't scoring at a level until that late stretch where Adebayo and Lowry started hitting shots. There was plenty of opportunities where the Knicks could have made that a serious one-possession game down the stretch, and their offense was putrid. And the fact that he was able to get away with playing 5-on-4 was inexcusable.
And speaking of, it was obvious within 10 seconds of after Jimmy Butler made the free throw, hobbled back down the floor, hobbled back up the floor, that he was clearly only being used as a decoy. So if you're worried about Obi's defensive capabilities or lack thereof,
right, put him on Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, exactly. All Butler was doing was standing in the corner and right. was being a decoy. So if you're worried about Obi defensively, you mentioned Lowry. I thought he was obviously a key to the game, something you didn't expect to going in. How about the fact that Miami's Villanova guy, Kyle Lowry, outscored the Knicks Nova Bros, Brunson and Hart in the fourth quarter combined. And Lowry had 9. Hart and Brunson had 4 apiece. So that just kind of shows you that it was also Kyle Lowry had 4 blocks in game 1. The Knicks team combined had 4 blocks. It was a weird game on a lot of different fronts. It was the first time Lowry had played more than 27 minutes. Just the second time Lowry had played more than 20 minutes since January. So you certainly don't expect that game from him. Only a day off. Looking ahead towards game 2, can he keep that up? Probably not. But again, to your point, the frustrating thing is the Knicks let a winnable game slip away because the Heat didn't play their A game. Obviously, didn't have Jimmy Butler.
You didn't have this superhuman Jimmy Butler game that we've been seeing over the last few games.
Exactly. He's a guy that averaged 40 points a game, nearly 40 points a game. Was 37.6, shooting 60% from the floor against Milwaukee. Had a solid game, 25 points, 11 rebounds. But again, he didn't explode. Duncan Robinson was 0 of 5 from 3. Caleb Martin didn't kill you. It was the point guard play that Gabe Vincent and Kyle Lowry kind of exposed the Knicks, and that was their kind of game plan, was we're not going to let Jimmy Butler beat us. We're going to collapse the defense and make these other guys shoot 3-pointers. So again, will Kyle Lowry come crashing back down to earth? Probably. We saw how poorly he played during the regular season. Looks a little bit healthier now. They obviously managed his minutes, but
yeah.
That's the thing about the C team, is one night it could be Caleb Martin has a big game, and then Kevin Love might hit 4 threes, and Duncan Robinson's going to hit 4 threes in a game at some point in the series.
I think Kevin Love deserves a lot of props too. I thought he changed the game in the third quarter. He had those long outlet passes. He hit a three. Like, he only had 9 points, but I don't know what his plus minus was, but I thought he changed the entire game with that little stretch he had in the third.
That third quarter changed the game, and he was a key factor in that third quarter. I know Aaron Rodgers was in the building, but he threw some beautiful touchdown passes time and again. And now we know why Obi's a power forward and not a defensive back, because he had kind of tip off his hands. Knicks had to do a better job with floor balance. But to your point, and to Love's credit, those passes had to be perfect in order to find their recipient on the other end of the floor. Most of the time it was Butler leaking out. So yeah, there's a lot there. And and the other takeaway I think from game one, we wrote about it this morning, was the Knicks had a big advantage against Cleveland, particularly in the games at the Garden, in terms of poise, presence. Cavs were shook, clearly. Starting in the first quarter of game 3, they never were settled. The crowd got into their ear. The Knicks' physicality, from that standpoint, from game 1, carried it through game 5. They just, and rarely does a player admit it. Jaron Allen admitted it. The lights were too bright. This Heat team, you're not going to get that. Grizzled veterans, competitive. Just guys that work hard. They've been through the system. They've had their ups and downs. Keep in mind, game 4 against Milwaukee in Miami, Heat are down 16 points in the fourth quarter, come back and win. Game 5 in Milwaukee, in a closeout game, an elimination game against the desperate Bucks team. Their season on the line, the number 1 seed. Bucks are up 15. Heat come back and win. So we should not have been surprised. Heat fall down 12 early on. They're not going to all of a sudden go, oh my God, what? They're, Kyle Lowry comes in the game. Jimmy Butler's going to get his buckets. They're not going to panic. Spo's going to make some in-game adjustments, get them some easy looks. And that's what happened. So I thought that was important to point out, just from that perspective. This is not the Cavs team that looked soft last round.
Absolutely. Heat, grizzled veterans team with a lot of maybe not championship medal, though. You have Kyle Lowry. He's won a championship. Of course, Spoelstra won a championship, and assistant coach / player Udonis Haslem won a championship. Some of the other guys, Kevin Love. So there is some. Now I'm kind of racking them off. Now there is some championship pedigree there, but definitely guys who have been in the playoffs, been deep in the playoffs. When we talk about Butler, Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, these guys who are not going to be afraid of these moments, and they showed it in game 1. So Heat win game 1. We now move on to game 2. Knicks will look to even the series on Tuesday at Madison Square Garden. Knicks could be facing a Heat team that is further shorthanded. As we mentioned, Butler, he did not hold a post-game press conference after the game. He only had the comments to Cassidy Hubbard after the game in the post-game interview, where she asked him, how's the ankle feeling? He said, quote, like a rolled ankle. So he was not moving well leaving the court. People were in the locker room said he wasn't really moving well in the locker room. So we'll see what his status is for game 2. Eric Spoelstra said that he will have a better idea today, as we record on Monday, whether or not Butler will be a go for game 2 or what he'll be beyond game 2. Meanwhile, all eyes now on Julius Randle. I think that there were parts in that game where it felt like Randle was missed, and he did work out in game 1, but did not suit up, obviously. He was said to not look that great in the warm-ups that he did do. So Randle got shots up, wasn't able to play. So as we hit to game 2, 7:30 on Tuesday, the two of the biggest stars in the series, 2 of the top 4 players in this series, both now have injured ankles, one trying to recover, the other just happening and now trying to see if he can play through it. If this you don't usually do this, but I want to kind of put you in the Heat's perspective, Tommy. You're coming in, you're up 1-0. You have now home court advantage. Jimmy Butler has this ankle injury that we know is something. It's not nothing, clearly. do you rest Jimmy Butler in game 2, regardless? Because Jimmy's gonna want to play. That goes to our question. Do you rest Butler in game 2 and say, hey, we got till Saturday to play the next game, we'll get you right then? Or do you try to get him to go in game 2 and say, hey, we win game 2, then the series is essentially over, and we can just try to get one game in Miami and we'll be fine?
Yeah, I'm sitting Jimmy Butler, and that's what I expect them to do. Butler's going to want to play, but there were multiple reports that his ankle swelled up, size of a baseball, and we'll see. They'll pregame it. They'll probably list him as questionable, maybe doubtful, and bump him up to questionable. I would be surprised if Butler played. And again, like you said, they won game one. You want to come in and steal one of the first 2 games in the Garden. You got one in your pocket. There's a lot of things that factor into this. Only 1 day of rest between games 1 and 2, and then you have the 3 full days off between games 3 and 4. So I really think it behooves Miami to kind of think big picture here. Yes, you love the idea of putting a stranglehold on the series and winning 2 games in New York. But I like the idea better of having a healthy Jimmy Butler, because let's be honest, you're only going to go as far as Jimmy Butler takes you. And now, if you're the Heat and Spoelstra and Riley are looking at the rest of the Eastern Conference and saying, Embiid's not going to play Monday. Celtics looked terrible in games 4 and 5. Couldn't close out a bad Hawks team. Who knows? Embiid's LCL. Who knows if he comes back for game 2? Does he re-injure it in game 3 when he returns? A lot of question marks there. The Heat are thinking now, there's a path to the NBA Finals that has opened up for us. They're not the favorites. They're not looking past the Knicks. They're not looking past the Celtics. It would be a really tough matchup. And B can still average 35 and 14 in the series. We've seen him play through injuries before. All that being said, Heat up 1-0, second round of the playoffs. Rest of the conference shaky. They already got the number 1 seed out of there. We've seen injuries kind of wreak havoc throughout these NBA playoffs, the Clippers and, suspensions and guys, big stars missing games. Randall not playing. Who knows if he comes back in game 2, if and when he comes back, is he healthy? They have to like their chances now in the series. They wrestled home court advantage away. So again, thinking big picture, even if Butler's 80%, normally if this was a game 7, I'd say, listen, you put him out there. If you can't go, give me 10 minutes. All that big picture stuff considered, is it possible he wakes up tomorrow, swelling subsides, and he's like 85% of himself, and he says, hey, let's give it a go? Doctors say they're not going to make it worse. Just, even if he does tweak it, you still have 3 more days off. This is real, playoff games. You can't take them for granted. Butler says, listen, you're not keeping me out. I could see it happen, and I definitely won't rule it out. But again, my assumption, we don't see Jimmy Butler play. On the flip side of the coin, the Knicks don't have that luxury. So I do think we see Randall return to the lineup, and then we'll figure that out as it goes along. But your thoughts, do you think Butler plays Tuesday night?
Yeah, and real quick before I answer that, Spoelstra today said that there actually, as we record on Monday, that there won't be an update today. All he was he said during that he's getting around the clock treatment, but that there probably won't be an update until before the game on Tuesday. So perhaps some gamesmanship. I tend to think also, though, even beyond the gamesmanship that's being played, that makes sense why you wouldn't have much of an update today. I think if Butler was in great shape, I think that he would have said something. I don't think Butler is doing well. That ankle injury didn't look good when it happened. He didn't look good trying to muscle it out there. I think that a less tough player would not have finished that game. I think that Butler showed the kind of heart he has by staying out there on the court, even just to be a decoy. So, yeah, I don't think there's a high chance that he plays. I'll agree with you because it's Jimmy Butler. I'm not going to put it on 0. But I think that it's probably, 85% chance he doesn't play. So, and I think that would make sense because you already got the game that you needed. And the Heat have shown that, look, as long as they can get game 1, they feel very comfortable going back home. I mean, that Bucks series, they won game 1. And then they lost by like 1,000,000 points in game 2, and it without Giannis playing in that game. And we, that game kind of made a lot of NBA fans and observers feel like, okay, well, even without Giannis, maybe the Bucks have kind of righted themselves, and this is a Bucks team that won on games without Giannis during the season.
And I think that game 2 is probably one of the reasons he didn't play game 3. They felt confident enough. Like,
right, exactly.
Let's give Giannis an extra day off. So that might also be in the Heat's thinking, like, oh, we can't take games for granted because you might need it. But again, I think, we're talking about game 2 and just assuming he'll be fine for game 3. If the ankle's bad, he might miss the weekend. Like there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee he's going to come back. It's very difficult to predict ankle injuries. And even when he comes back, does he? That's obviously going to be a major headline talking point for the rest of the season.
Yeah, because I really do feel like, and look, I mean, injuries are injuries, and it happened to every team. I mean, I hope he's healthy. I mean, I want to see these teams play at 100%. So I'm wishing Jimmy Butler well. But like, if Jimmy Butler is what he was in the end of that game, he had no chance. I mean, that to me, I think is relatively clear. I don't know, maybe some people would think that they could win without him. I don't think so. I think he's carried them in this postseason. He was a big part of why they won. Or at least they had the lead in that fourth quarter before he got hurt, and then Lowry and Bam, Gabe Vincent kind of took him to the finish line. I don't think they can have the luxury of saying, oh, well, we could survive, the rest of the series without him or him playing, 50%. They're going to need him close to 100%. So this is a huge storyline. I agree. I don't think he plays. You got to rest him. There's such a long layoff now that we're in the semifinals with these big, almost 4 days before the next game. I don't see any reason to play him. So I think he sits. In terms of Knicks adjustments, though, because the Knicks are going to have to play better regardless of whether or not Jimmy Butler is out there or not. Randall will obviously be an important one. But I think one of the things that I think kind of got lost in the shuffle of that game that they lost on Sunday was the Knicks stopped running. I thought the Knicks really got it going, especially in the first quarter by getting out in transition. And it's kind of like what we saw in the second half of the Cleveland series in game 5. It kind of carried over into game 1. Obi Toppin's running the break, Archie Barrett's running the break. And it's almost like, again, if you're prepared to play against the Knicks against Julius Randle, then Obi Toppin's out there running the floor, and all of a sudden they're running and gunning. It's like this is an entirely different team than the team he prepared for. I think the Heat kind of were not shook, as you said, and I agree. But they kind of were like, oh, this is kind of maybe not what we were expecting. So I think the Knicks got to get back to that, regardless of Randle plays or not. Like, they got to get some points in transition. This is a very good defensive team, and as we saw, if they want to turn off the paint, they can turn off the paint. They're so good in their principles. They have so many good individual defenders. To think that the Knicks can just ISO their way and one-on-one their way through beating this team is going to be a tall order, because as you saw down the stretch, they just seem to have another level they can get to defensively where it's like, okay, RJ and Brunson, you guys have had your way for 3 quarters. All right, fourth quarter, no more. So if that's going to happen, the Knicks going to have to find a way to score in other ways. I want to see them get back into the open floor more. And I want to see more minutes from Quentin Grimes. I know he hasn't necessarily rewarded the Knicks with playing time, given how he's played in this postseason. But the Knicks are going to need shooting, and they cannot afford to just go, stretches and stretches of. There was a stretch where they hadn't made a 3 in like 8 minutes at one point. Like, they cannot go those long stretches where they just don't make any shots. They got to get somebody out there who can go out there and shoot. We know Quentin Grimes can get hot and he can make shots. So if they're going to struggle, he needs to play more. He played 10 minutes his first game back, so maybe want to, ease him in. That can't happen anymore. He's got to play his 20, 25 minutes a night. And especially, this could be a good game for him to get his rhythm, because if Jimmy Butler does not play, that'll mean that you don't have this idea of, I got to match Hart's minutes with Grimes with Jimmy Butler. I can, just play how I normally would. So I think that those are some of the key adjustments I would have. But what do you think about some of the adjustments Thompson will have to make?
I was definitely going to bring up the Grimes point. And also, Barrett did a relatively good job defending Butler as well on certain sessions.
And he normally does. Yeah.
He does. I thought we'd see primarily, especially when Hart was in the game, he shadowed his minutes in the first half, essentially. But even when they were both on the floor, Barrett had took some opportunities to guard Butler, which I thought was interesting. So that kind of, and Grimes is also capable of defending Butler for possessions. But yes, I agree that Grimes has to get more minutes. Whether that takes a few minutes away from Hart, whether it takes a few more minutes away from IQ, you got to figure out a way to get him on the floor, especially if Quickly's not hitting shots. I toyed with the idea of, do you have to limit Quickly's minutes? Maybe get McBride in there. But again, the Knicks have done good job defensively. I don't think you necessarily need to go in that direction. outside of Butler, there's not really, a penetrating point guard like Darius Garland type dude on Miami. So, I think you just have to live and die with quickly. He helped, he got you there. He brought you to the dance by playing, like the sixth man of the year through 82 games of the regular season. You kind of just have to hope he snaps out of it. Maybe run some more action to try to get him some open looks, tell him to be more aggressive. But he has been taking a decent amount of shots. He's just not making them. So we'll see how that plays out. But yes, I agree. Again, make or miss. Knicks were, one of the reasons the Heat were comfortable daring the Knicks to shoot from the perimeter is because the Knicks finished 20th in the league in 3-point percentage, below league average in the regular season. We talked about how badly they've shot in the playoffs. It's a sensible and not shocking, considering they're matched up against one of the best tactician head coaches in the NBA. Spo daring them to beat them. So there, for that reason alone, you got to get Grimes in there. To your pace point, totally agree, especially when you have Obi in the lineup and not Randall.
Yeah.
But then we got to talk about assuming Randall comes back. That's a factor. You got to, is he rusty? We've seen him, play well in his first game back. They played well that first half of game one, played well in game 5 before he got injured. But that's another kind of twist and turn. We'll see how it goes. So 2 questions for you. Do you think Randall plays? What odds would you put on Randall playing Tuesday night? And would you consider inserting Grimes back into the starting lineup and having Hart come off the bench?
Yeah, so on the Randall thing, I think the odds of him playing, I don't know. I don't know if they're as high as other people would say. I think it's more 50-50. I think he's hurt. Like, I think he's one of those guys. Randall has shown that, like, if he can go, like, he plays. He's a durable guy. He's a guy that plays through Knicks and Knacks. So the fact that he did not go and he even tried to work out and he still couldn't go, that doesn't leave me feeling well that a day later, essentially, one day off, then we're back at it. He's ready to go. I think that if I had to guess, I would say no. I think that he plays in game 3. I think the Jimmy Butler injury, I know you said that, that the Knicks don't have that luxury, and I agree. But I think the Jimmy Butler injury, they will take the opposite. They'll think, well, Butler's not playing. We should beat this team without Jimmy Butler.
Right.
So if Randall can get a full week now to get that ankle ready for some big games in Miami, and we're tied 1-1. So you think
if the Knicks won game 1, he definitely wouldn't play in game 2? Is kind of
absolutely not. I don't think there's no way he plays game 2. They would have won. I think that the loss makes it more interesting, and I think it makes it more dire. If Jimmy Butler was 100%, I think that he played. But I think that things are a little different now, and I don't think that he's right. So if I had to guess, I'd say no. I don't think he's ready. I know even the fact that Obi Toppin in the post game said that he really was not told about what Randall's status was, which I don't think is good. Like, to me, if he was right, they tell him, he'll be probably good in a day or 2, or maybe he'll start today, but you're probably back on the bench for game 2. The fact that they didn't even tell him anything, he just learned before the game that he's not going. You're starting. I'm like, man, they really were trying to push it to the very end to see if they could get him to play, and he couldn't play. So I don't feel great about where Randall is, but I do think they can win game 2 without him, especially if Jimmy Butler is hobbled or playing. Whether he plays or not, I think that they can win this game. I don't think that he's right. And I really think what I saw in the first series is going to kind of like inform how the Heat would approach it. Like, they're an older team. They, as we kind of saw with the Warriors, like, you only got a certain amount of bullets in the chamber when you get to a certain age. And they played a hard, tough game 1. And they earned the win. They played better than the Knicks. So I think that in a game where they don't have to win, that they're going to go out there and play with that kind of desperation in game 2, knowing their star is hurt or hobbled or maybe not even playing. That would surprise me. I mean, they're the Heat, so we know they got great culture and all that stuff, but I think that the Knicks should be fine. So it's Tuesday will be very interesting. There's a lot of variables that we just won't know until game time, really.
Yeah, I would say, and I hear a lot of people saying, not just Knicks fans, but kind of national media, this feels like a game 2 blowout, like a 20-point Knicks win.
Yeah.
We saw the Bucks win. Heat probably without Jimmy Butler, the desperate team. They played well all postseason. They played well all year. It's very uncommon for a home team, higher seeded team, to lose the first 2 games of a series. And while all that's true, game 2 makes me nervous. even if Butler's not missing, the Heat would be 100% playing with house money. This is, they literally, just nobody would expect them. Knicks would probably be double-digit favorites in the game, or somewhere around there. And my concern would be the Knicks would be tight in that spot, knowing that this is the first time this group has played a must-win game. Again, they didn't play a game 6 against Cleveland. They didn't play a game 7 against Cleveland.
They never trailed in the series.
They basically never trailed the entire series, even in any games. After
except for game 2.
Didn't have any must-win end of regular season games, to qualify for the postseason, anything like that. Where the Heat have been playing essentially must-win games for a month now,
and they've lost a lot of. They lost a lot of them too. So they know what it's like to lose. They know what it's like to win. Like, they've been through it all.
So that game 2 worries me. That being said, obviously the Knicks should win. But one thing I will point out. Knicks have never, in their franchise history, have never won a series in which they've lost game 1 at home. They're 0-7 all time. Take that for what it's worth. Make no mistake about it. Randall or no Randall, Knicks need to show up, play hard, play desperate, and obviously win on Tuesday.
Yeah, 2013 Knicks team lost that game 1 to the Pacers at home at Madison Square Garden. And that led to them losing that series, a series that a lot of people think should have won. So, here we are again. This is not good for the home team to lose game 1. Usually it's a very bad omen, but all it means is you could be a team that makes history. So that's the way the Knicks got to approach it. And with the Butler injury, I think this makes this series kind of still very kind of undetermined of how this will go moving forward. So that's 7:30 Tuesday. Be there, be square. Let's get to just the kind of overall kind of look at the playoff picture and how it relates to the Knicks, because the final 8 teams are now set in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference semifinals. They're officially now fully underway. Monday night, we got Celtics, Sixers in game 1. So the other Eastern Conference series gets underway. Sixers center Joel Embiid listed as he was listed as doubtful prior to game 1 due to a sprained LCL. The Celtics, they clinched their playoff spot in the second round after beating the Hawks Friday night in game 6. Meanwhile, in the West, the Nuggets and Suns face off in game 2 on Monday as well. Denver took game 1, big game from Jamal Murray. Lakers and Warriors is the other matchup in the Western Conference. Lakers demolished the Grizzlies on Friday in game 6, sent them home with a 40-point blowout. I was dead wrong about that series. And then Steph Curry breaking the game 7 record in the NBA with 50 points on Sunday to eliminate the Kings. So I want to keep this from a Knicks perspective, at least to start. Now that we have Sixers Celtics, we know that that's the matchup. We have no choice but to look ahead, because this is the podcast. This is what we got to talk about, these conversations. What matchup do you think better fits the Knicks if they were able to move on from Miami between the Celtics and the Sixers?
I think if you're a Knicks fan, you want a Philadelphia, just because of the Embiid injury. I think that, again, even if he returns, it seems unlikely he'll be anything close to 100% for the next month or so. Can the Sixers still beat the Knicks, with Embiid hobbled? Certainly. They have plenty of athletes, plenty of scorers. But yeah, I prefer to go up against, a Harden Doc Rivers combo than Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Knicks have, it's trouble defending wings. Just top to bottom, I think the Celtics are a better team, more disciplined team. So I think I prefer that matchup. Obviously not taking anything away from Philly. They can easily make a run to the finals here. But if I had to choose one of the two, I'd probably prefer to play Philly.
I think if this was Philly 100% healthy, this would be a little closer, because I've said for a while now, we've been doing this podcast since December. The Celtics, I think the Knicks matchup way better with the Celtics than people realize. I think because, especially after getting Josh Hart, because the Knicks play essentially 3 wings that can all defend, at least 2 guys defend all the time. RJ can defend when he wants to, and he's starting to play much better defense down the stretch. For some reason, they play very confident against those guys. I don't know if it's like some of these guys have the same trainers or whatever. They just don't seem to be that bothered by Boston. So I think this would be a lot closer if Embiid was fully healthy. Now that he's not, and Embiid seems like one of those guys too that when he's hurt, he doesn't play well through injury. Yeah. We've seen almost every playoff he gets hurt, and he's like a shell of himself. So whether he comes back in this series or not, I'm just not expecting the MVP Joel Embiid. I think you're going to get a guy who's 70% of what he is, 60% of what he is. And we know now, because Philly keeps failing in the playoffs, that is not going to be enough. It's never enough. When Joel Embiid is dealing with a face injury, a foot injury, a knee injury, whatever it is, it's always something, but it's never enough to get through. So I think if you're the Knicks, if somehow they survive Boston, I feel like you say, look, I'll take my chances with Embiid on a bum knee and figure it out from there. I think the Knicks have, Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein, who can play a lot of minutes on him. And like I've always said about the Sixers, and why I thought the Knicks also match up the Sixers well is the Sixers don't really overwhelm you with their athleticism. They're going to be very comfortable playing in the half court. They don't overwhelm you with a lot of speed. I think that the Knicks would actually have the athleticism and speed advantage in that series, and I think that would be something that they could take advantage of. So it should be a good series. I think almost regardless if Embiid is fully healthy, I don't think that the Sixers could beat the Celtics without Embiid relatively healthy. But these are two teams that always play a great game, so I expect this to be a great series as well. Who are you taking in that series, by the way? Are you taking Philly or Boston?
I got Boston. Yeah, like you said, I just, even if Embiid was, fully healthy, I'd probably lean towards Boston, but Embiid not being 100%. Again, I just, faith in Doc Rivers and Harden. I prefer to go with kind of a more proven commodity in Boston.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, this was my preseason NBA champion, Philadelphia 76ers, and I can't pick them with Embiid having a sprained LCL. I don't feel good about that matchup. So I would agree that I think it's going to be Boston coming through. And then when you look at the West, how does the West shake out? I mean, again, I got to give you credit. You were on the Lakers and LeBron on a last dance kind of run here, and that's what we've seen. They demolished the Memphis Grizzlies. And then the Warriors of Steph Curry, he has that monster game, game 7, where he scores 50 on the road to knock out the Kings. And then we've already got, a Western Conference series that's gotten underway with the Nuggets and Suns, and the Nuggets making a statement in game 1. How do you see the West shaking out?
I see Adam Silver smiling wherever he is in the league office.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just a dream matchup for the league, for the fans. We know the history between Steph and LeBron, and 2 of the 10 greatest players of all time. It's maybe the last time we ever get to first time it's with LeBron as a member of the Lakers, but obviously we know the history there. Maybe the last time we get these 2 all-time legends going head to head. Man, I'm leaning towards Golden State. I just, after watching Steph, you don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but my goodness, Steph Curry, masterful 50-point performance on the road, just an incredible player. Just let's appreciate Steph Curry, while he's still at the peak of his powers, because incredibly he still is. These are 2 players in their 30s, closer to 40 than, obviously LeBron included, still played at an incredibly high level. In order for the Lakers to win, they're going to have to dominate the interior. They're going to need Anthony Davis to be, superstar Anthony Davis. And I just can't trust him in a big spot, whether he gets injured, whether he disappears for a game or 2. If he does, he plays up to his capability, plays up to his talent level, averages, 27 and, 12. Certainly the Lakers have a chance. Never would count out LeBron. Really, they got great contributions from their, new additions, their defensive pieces, and Austin Reeves, and, obviously Rui Hachimura has played at an incredibly high level. Got to see that a little bit more to believe it. So I think it's a tough series. I think it's a tight series. So I think, I think it'll probably go 7. And Warriors having home court, I think, matters. In a game 7, even though we saw them lost game 6, it looked like that could be the final game of the Warriors dynasty. So it's enjoyable. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be nip and tuck. But I'm going to go with, just Looney's playing at a really high level. Klay Thompson played poorly. They still won game 7. You assume he'll bounce back and play well in the Lakers series. And then, the X factor being Steph. I think they could incredibly be making another run here.
I'd say, I mean, this is, first of all, as a Steph Curry fan, as I posted on Twitter, it's like, it's bad enough. I'm all invested in this Knicks series. And then I was not rooting for a Steph match because I can't even deal with that again. It's like I don't know. Maybe LeBron fans, I feel like they could do this all day to like Captain America in the Marvel series. Like they have no problem with the debates and all the arguments and all the trash talk. Like I don't know, man. Like I'm done. I'm too old for this. Like I can't do another Steph versus LeBron series, a Steph versus LeBron debate. Like I'm looking forward to it as a basketball fan, not looking forward to it so much as a Steph fan. Though I will say that was quite a showing he did, and he showed why. He's second best point guard of all time, and I don't think that he's that far from number one with the way he's playing right now. Just incredible performance from Steph Curry. I agree. I think I lean Warriors. And I think the Looney Davis thing is kind of where I'm looking at. I think Davis is the X factor, and I think what I saw Looney do to Sabonis, it makes me feel like Davis is better than Sabonis, but Davis ain't tougher than Sabonis. So I think that Looney and Draymond, that combination, they'll be ready for that challenge. I think it's a great series. I think it can go 6 or 7. And I'll tell you what, I know on this show I had the Suns winning the championship, but I tweeted a couple of weeks ago because I saw what was happening in the first game of that Minnesota series that Denver had. If the Nuggets are getting Jamal Murray, Bubble Murray, they're going to win the West. I think that is a trump card that I don't think I really was anticipating because he played a whole season. He played really well, but he didn't look like that guy yet. He was kind of coming back. I mean, he looks so locked in, so focused, and he looks like a guy that has now translated that game to these playoff atmospheres, this playoff pressure with full crowds, full, everything involved. And this is the guy they're going to get. You can't beat that team if they got that kind of point guard play, and then Jokic getting you 24 and 19. So I think the Suns are in trouble. They had 2 really good games from Durant and Booker, and they got blown out. Like they don't have any depth. I think this is a series of Chris Paul is going to have to be more aggressive. They can't just say Durant, Booker, you just score your combined 60 and we'll win like they did against the Clippers. They need a lot more from Chris Paul if they're going to win this series.
I'm with you, EJ. I had the Suns going too. I don't know if I can pick them to beat this Nuggets team right now. Who's the Suns' fifth best player? Outside the big four. Kogi started.
Shamet, maybe.
Torrey Craig, Andrew,
Torrey Craig, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. So that whereas I thought somebody had a good point. I saw on Twitter that the last time Nuggets were eliminated, Will Barton was second on the team in minutes played behind Jokic, and he was, and that's a guy that couldn't get minutes for a terrible Wizards team the second half of the season. To me, the Murray being that guy, and he has been that guy, averaging 28, 6 and 5, shooting lights out, 6 of 10 from 3. You have Gordon to come after them defensively. Porter Jr. is going to have a good game. KCP. I love Bruce Brown off the bench. Jeff Green's a solid veteran. The depth that they have, and again, just to get here, the Suns haven't been extended, but they've had to play KD and Booker 40+ minutes a night. So if this series goes 5, 6, 7 games, how will they respond in that thin air up in Denver in a game 5, in Denver in a game 7? So I think I'm leaning towards the Nuggets making a run to the finals here.
I think one of the things that is concerning as well, as you mentioned, those minutes ratcheting it up. As you said, the series is going to get deep. And I think when you saw the series, they were playing big minutes against the Clippers.
Yes.
And those games, I felt like the Clippers kind of just let them off the hook. Not because they weren't trying their hardest. It's just they didn't have the firepower to match those guys in the fourth quarter. Every game came down essentially to the fourth quarter. And the Suns just had Booker or had Durant. One of those guys, most times Booker, where it would just take over. Like, they don't have that luxury anymore, where it's like it doesn't almost matter how bad we play in the fourth quarter, we'll be able to beat these guys. So I don't think we learned a lot about the Suns in that first round. Like I really wanted to see them play a full Clippers team. I think we would have learned more, and they would have learned more about themselves. Like KD was saying, "Hey man, I don't know how you guys are surprised. This is a good ass team." I'm like, I mean, yeah, but like, if you're not surprised at how badly you guys got beat, like that kind of scares me a little bit.
Right?
Like, are you guys that like unsure of how things are going? Like, I don't know. Like I thought you guys were going to win this series. Again, I had you guys win the championship. I mean, you're not surprised you got beat by 18 in game 1. Like, I don't know. I was a little alarmed by that comment. So this doesn't look good. I mean, you always overreact after one game, but I'm very concerned about the Suns because they can't coast to 3 quarters and say, okay, fourth quarter, we're going to just turn it on. This is a team that's going to run them out the gym if that's the case. So should be fun Western Conference playoffs. Should be a fun Eastern Conference playoffs. And one thing I will say before we get out of here is, as I kind of looked at the bracket is now set with the final 8 teams, it is kind of awesome. And I don't want to sound like Woody Johnson here, the Jets owner, who was saying it was so great that Odell Beckham, wanted to be a Jet or thought about being a Jet. But like, it is kind of crazy to be like, wow, look at the Knicks and like, look at where they are. And look at the other organizations that are in this final 8, like the Warriors, the Suns, the Nuggets, the Sixers, the Celtics, the Heat. Like, these are all organizations that you say these are well-run organizations, teams that you expect to go in deep runs in the playoffs, teams with like MVP candidates. Like, the fact that the Knicks are in this conversation, and it's not like they're a team that's there like this crazy underdog. Like, a lot of people are picking Knicks to win this series. Like, the fact that they're even in this mix, I think, says a lot about where this franchise has come in a very short amount of time.
100%, and they're trending in the right direction. They still have all their most of their draft capital to use.
Yeah.
Plenty of young players on young contracts. That being said, there have been a million instances of teams that thought they were at the start of something really special, only for them to fall backwards in the following year and in years after. Knicks don't want to be one of those teams, so you have to take advantage of the opportunity in front of you. This is a winnable series against a potentially injured, hobbled opponent that the Knicks have to take advantage of. That starts Tuesday night, and then you put yourself in the Final Four. And as we know from NCAAs and NBA postseasons, anything can happen once you get there.
Possible. Yeah.
But you got to get there first, and that starts by winning Tuesday night.
Yep, Tuesday's big again, 7:30 at Madison Square Garden. That's gonna do it though for this edition of Orange and Blue Blood. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Tommy, let people know where they can find you.
At Tommy Beer on Twitter.
You can find me, EJ_Stewart on Twitter, Action EJ on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you guys again for checking us out. This is On Your Blue Bloods, a New York Knicks podcast, WFAN original. Of course, you can catch these episodes wherever you get your podcasts, including the free Audacy app. Make sure you get the auto download feature on your streaming service so you get these episodes every time we drop. We drop 3 times a week. We'll be back Wednesday with a new episode. We'll have a Heat guest most likely with us, so that should be really fun. So make sure you check out that episode on Wednesday. Again, make sure you hit the auto download feature and check us out on YouTube. Check us out on the WFAN channel and the Audacy Sports channel as well. Leave us a comment in the comment section as well. I love reading those. So, thank you guys again for checking us out. That'll do it for now. For Tommy, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest podcast ventures. Links will be in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.